It is very difficult to have a positive conversation when it comes to a publisher like Electronic Arts. The horrific things that they have done over the years, the damage that they have done to the gaming industry, so many developers, studios, it really cannot be understated. But yes, they are at the top of the gaming industry for a reason. They are very good at monetizing their player base, and more specifically, normalizing horrific microtransactions, tactics that really got normalized right around 2008, 2009, right around that time with the FIFA Ultimate Team inception. When that got invented, it really spawned what we see today in the mobile free-to-play sphere. That all started with the Electronic Arts. That's why every single year we're always talking about this company in a different controversy, or something to do with greedy monetization, because that is what this company is good at. Now, just in 2025 alone, I think a lot of people, when they see a headline with Electronic Arts in it, they just kind of scoff at it and kind of move on. But it's important to understand that EA's CEO earlier this year explained why Dragon Age The Veilguard flopped. And yes, he blamed it specifically on it not being a live service. We had Respawn Entertainment. They canceled 2 games so they could focus more on Apex Legends and Star Wars. This is just the risk-adverse nature of the AAA games industry that frustrates me so often. And with that headline, with layoffs that, transpired after that, we saw that Respawn Entertainment, their developers, said the morale was at an all-time low. Surprise, surprise, no. And then EA canceled the Black Panther game, closing cliffhanger games before I think they could even make their first entry. Just wild to invest in these studios and then just immediately pull the plug before anything is even released. But that really has been the nature of EA's non-sports games. It's just been constant chaos. And I really don't think that they have delivered in this regard since maybe the early 2010s. That's how long it has been. But since I keep referencing these sports franchises, it's important to understand this has also been a disaster for EA, especially in 2025. We saw Codemasters, which, might I add, they just got acquired a couple of years ago. EA in the original headlines was saying, we're going to keep it going with all these rally games. No. They confirmed layoffs as EA-owned studio shifts focus away from beloved rally games. There was also EA putting the Criterion's Need for Speed team on Battlefield, confirming no more content coming to Need for Speed Unbound, and it looks like that franchise will be dormant for the next number of years. Skate finally returned, and that actually, it's got mixed reception right now, with fans dubbing it a gentrified version of Skate 3. Everything surrounding the gameplay is a positive. The problem is basically everything else. Ouch. Madden NFL 25, I think critics, users have all just had it with this. It's just not worth the price tag that it's being offered at, and you can see that in these reviews. 69 top critic average, only 34% of critics recommending the experience, and many just exhausted by these yearly entries which just don't do enough to give players a reason to spend the $70, $80 or plus dollars on it. But the big domino that has fallen is EA Sports FC. FIFA, this is the money cow. This is the cash cow. When you've talked about all of the controversies over the years, when you've had, Star Wars Battlefront 2 and how Electronic Arts was trying to handle all of that, this is the one thing that they could fall back on. It was always the Ultimate Team revenue, which was coming from the mobile sphere, but also coming from console sales. It has been the top seller, but it's finally showing life. It's finally showing it is not impenetrable. EA Sports FC 25 flop, spooks investors, sinks stock price. So yeah, Electronic Arts has been, and they are in trouble. Their non-sports franchises haven't delivered in over a decade, and their sports franchises are starting to hurt. All of that makes a lot of investors and everybody just get extremely nervous about investing and being part of Electronic Arts and having them in their portfolio. That's why it just doesn't come as a surprise that the Saudi Arabian government is one of those few companies that has been circling the waters and thinking about making a move with them. And we've heard the Saudi Arabian government in the gaming industry, they've made a number of moves already. They were originally going to make a massive stake into the Embracer Group. That sale fell apart, but we've known for a while now that they were planning some big splashes. This is a news story we talked about in 2022. I remember talking about it on the channel, the fact that they were going to be investing $40 billion. And a lot of people were wondering, where is that money going to go? Well, now we know it appears to be, at least some of it, Electronic Arts. $55 billion EA buyout hands Madden over to investors, including Saudi Arabia and Jared Kushner. And if you're not aware, Jared Kushner is part of the Trump family. He is the son-in-law to President Trump. So yes, the President Trump and Saudi Arabian government have a hold over Electronic Arts and all of their franchises. That is just a crazy headline to say, not something I ever expected, but here we are. And it should be noted that Silver Lake, I think people are concentrating on the Saudi Arabia Jared Kushner angle a lot up for obvious reasons, but Silver Lake is a private equity company, and that just, it has me concerned. And we have seen how the private equity companies have totally destroyed the gaming industry and various franchises by pushing for over monetization. Like, I remember when everybody freaked out about Bethesda Game Studios doing all these live services, Fallout 76, Wolfenstein Youngblood, they, doubled down on ESO, and there was a couple of others that got canceled and such. People were like, why is Bethesda doing that? There was a massive private equity behind all of that. They were trying to juice up, their profits and everything, so a company like Microsoft would swoop in and buy them, and that's what ended up happening. But obviously it ruined those franchises and ruined the entries that we were getting. That is just one example of private equity just in the gaming sphere. Outside of that, we've seen how private equity can hurt so many other companies, but specifically Silver Lake, PIF, and Affinity Partners will take the gaming giant private. EA is going private. I don't think that is necessarily a bad thing. Going private means that you're not having to deal with all of, publicly traded companies deal with a lot more headaches. But the problem is that the companies that are going to be running this behind the scenes, I just don't know if they're really going to be caring about creativity and innovation and quality experiences. They're going to be focused on monetization, microtransactions, the one thing that Electronic Arts already does way too much of. But yes, Electronic Arts has announced it is being acquired and taken private in a $55 billion deal involving Silver Lake, Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, and Affinity Partners, which is founded and led by Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. The deal is expected to close in the first fiscal quarter of 2027 and is subject to approval, blah, blah, blah. That stuff's going to go easily along the way. And if approved, it will mark one of the biggest buyouts of a publicly traded company. The transaction will be funded by a combination of cash from each of these partners, as well as a rollover of the Saudi Arabia's existing stake in EA, which I think was around 10%, constituting an equity investment of approximately $36 billion and $20 billion of debt financing. People have not really been concentrating on this part, but EA is going into debt. They are putting themselves into debt to make this deal happen, taking on $20 billion. And the question now is, how are they going to come up with that $20 billion? And many theorize that we're going to see many more jobs being lost, mass layoffs happening pretty much, and maybe even more monetization, more live service push to make up for that money in the next coming years. But yeah, this is going to be solely committed by JP Morgan, $18 billion of which is expected to be funded at close. Each of PIF, Silver Lake, and Affinity Partners plan to fund the equity component of financing entirely from capital under their respective control. And as it is noted in this article, look, Take-Two Interactive already has Saudi Arabia as the same group. They have invested a little bit into it. Nintendo, Capcom. Saudi Arabia is coming. They are making a big hold on the gaming industry. What sort of influence or pushes could we see from Saudi Arabia? Unclear at the moment. But we did see an actual statement coming from EA's CEO, Andrew Wilson, and he said some stuff that it's just one of those moments of, do you think we're really that dumb? Do you think we're really that stupid? He said the company's values will remain unchanged. Yeah, nobody believes that. As well as their commitment to players and fans around the world following sale to Saudi investment firms. The moment is a recognition of your creativity. They're saying this to developers. This is what EA CEO Andrew Wilson. Your innovation and your passion. You have built some of the world's most iconic IP, created stories that have inspired global communities, and helped shape culture through interactive experiences. Everything we have achieved and everything that lies ahead is because of you. The only thing that this deal has done is probably lined up the pockets of many wealthy investors, as well as EA's executive leadership, which are all C-suite individuals that are just going to go from being multi-millionaires, they're going to make even more multi-millions from this deal. Our new partners bring deep experience across sports, gaming, and entertainment. They're committed with conviction to EA. They believe in our people, our leadership, and the long-term vision we are now building together. Our mission at EA to inspire the world to play continues to guide everything we do. Our values and our commitment to players and fans around the world remains unchanged. I don't know what these values are. Are these values just being extremely greedy with over monetization? Because that's the only thing that EA is known for today, as well as killing studios and firing many, many developers in record years. With continued rigor and operational excellence, we can amplify the creativity of our teams, accelerate innovation, and pursue transformative opportunities that position EA to lead the future of entertainment. We'll see about that. We really will. And we did see this article coming from Forbes' Paul Tassi. I thought it was interesting. One, it does include a statement coming from Jared Kushner about this deal, who says Electronic Arts is an extraordinary company with a world-class management team and a bold vision for the future. Again, I don't know what this bold vision of the future is. I've admired their ability to create iconic, lasting experiences, and as someone who grew up playing their games and now enjoys them with his kids, I couldn't be more excited about what's ahead. And it goes on to mention that a big question is what will change with EA's annual sports catalog and enormous monetization pathways like Ultimate Team. If anything, it's not going away. The curiosity is how much worse can it get, or could it get? EA has attempted to replicate those kinds of profits with other genres, and what potential outcome of this move and accruing that debt could be pushing that further in both these games and others. Battlefield Ultimate Team has always been their long-term vision. That is actually what they have talked about extensively from their executives over the years. It's just they never could make it happen. And I would not be surprised that they take another swing at it, especially say if Battlefield 6 ends up being successful, give it about a year or so and they just start implementing those tactics and those mechanics slowly. And I feel like that would be the way that they probably would do it. And the same way I think with the greed that they've done with Apex Legends over the years, I think a lot of it's just start out the launch good and then bring in the stuff later. One theory presented by Wedbush analyst Michael Pachter is that this move will come with a big push into mobile, where EA has not carved out a significant space, although they have kind of with their EA FC entries. Apex Legends Mobile, for instance, was launched in 2022 and closed in 2023, tanking in players and revenue. And yeah, I mean, we all expect that there's going to be more monetization, especially with the debt. It's just the question of where it may come from. But look, the video game industry, as we know it, is having a meltdown over this deal. Many very concerned about what this deal could have moving forward. Kotaku noted some of it. Mike Bithell saying, back in my day, EA bought things and dismantled them, not the other way around. Luke Plunkett, games journalist, saying this feels catastrophic in ways few other big industry deals have. Chris Bratt saying, Jared Kushner, the PIF, and $20 billion of debt being dropped onto the balance sheet. This one feels mega grim. And yeah, well, this effing sucks. I really don't think people realize just how bad the Saudis and Trump's nephew, not his nephew, controlling the stable of IP held onto by EA is for the art form. If you think mainstream gaming was stale before, now it's going to be owned by the most conservative people on the planet too. And I will say that is a point to bring up. Saudi Arabia, very conservative in terms of their values. But we have not seen that influence so far spread over to these companies. Like, they have had some other opportunities to do so. The only thing we have seen is like Cristiano Ronaldo. We'll talk about that later on. But yeah, I think that's the question a lot of people have right now. Are we going to see that influence in terms of progressive themes and stuff? Like Dragon Age The Veilguard, notorious for its controversy with the progressive elements that were within that game and some of the customization options. Is that something that Saudi Arabia will be okay with? We have seen them ban many games for even less. That's why I'm curious, will it stop with that, or could it be just any mature themes? That's going to be the curiosity moving forward. Jason Schreier, Bloomberg, former Kotaku, says it's official, EA is going private. The leveraged buyout will be financed by a staggering $20 billion of debt, which likely means some aggressive cost cutting is ahead for EA in the coming months and years. A lot of people are understandably focused on the Saudi Arabian Kushner part of this, but the far bigger immediate impact will come from the new private EA being on the hook for $20 billion in debt. That could mean mass layoffs, more aggressive monetization, and other big cost-cutting measures, maybe even studios being shut down. Another individual saying EA owns BioWare, Dragon Age, Mass Effect, Respawn, Titanfall, Apex Legends, System Shock, Dead Space, Need for Speed, classics like Ultima and Wing Commander, and The Sims on top of so many more games and franchises which will now be subject to the control of the Saudi royal family. Another individual saying, this business model should be flatly illegal, taking on a bunch of debt to buy a company and then burning the company to the ground to service that debt while paying yourselves huge fees is a purely destructive practice that has never once had a positive outcome. Ban it completely. It's not. That's just the nature of the corporate world, unfortunately. And another individual saying, this is Mass Effect, Dragon Age, The Sims, and every other title that might possibly be even the slightest bit queer getting killed dead. Ben Hansen, another games journalist, saying things will not be unchanged at EA. I think that was the big thing when Android Wilson said that our values and commitment isn't going to it is going to change. We all know that. He knows it deep down. It's just corpo speak. That we did see a former Dragon Age The Veilguard developer. This was one of the lead writers at BioWare who got fired earlier this year, saying, "BioWare, so your games, guns and football, yes. EA, mostly guns and football, yep. No, that stuff, no politics, we're not going to like. EA, haha, definitely not. Hey, could you give me 1 sec? I just need to shut down a studio real quick." And yeah, he's mocking all of that. Another individual saying, "BioWare, you gotta escape, you gotta leave now. Someone please buy BioWare before EA hands it over." And yeah, that has been the reaction, at least so far, from some individuals. We'll get to a couple more in a second, but it is worth just noting that at least some of the vision has, there has been some reports indicating what that maybe bold vision for Electronic Arts is, and it's not exactly very exciting for gamers. New EA owners hoping AI will cut costs and boost profits, it's claimed. So I'm guessing we're going to see many developers losing their jobs, and the answer is going to be just use AI tools instead. According to a new report from the Financial Times, the ownership group is betting on AI being able to significantly cut EA's operating costs. The enhanced use of AI will be used as a way to also boost EA's profits in the coming years. This will allow the new owners to manage a large debt load, which is $20 billion, on a company that has historically carried limited net debt. And to further reactions, Ubisoft dead, EA terminally ill with $20 billion of debt, dead, Activision having organs sold on live leak every day, also probably terminally ill, Bethesda see above, also all that's left is for WB to crumble, WB Games, and toss it into the bin, and the Western gaming industry has a pin put in it. And, well, that's the AAA games industry, to at least be a little bit more specific. Another individual saying, the private equity reaper has come for EA in a year. They'll have scrapped it for parts until the entire industry is some absentee executives and 6 engineers asking ChatGPT how to sell more FIFA Ultimate Team packs. I know most people have a reason to be mad at EA. They bought up and then killed off a huge list of beloved studios, to say at the very least, but I still think this is grim news. Another individual saying adds EA to the boycott list. Another individual saying pretty much easiest internal boycott of all time because of Kushner and the Saudis, although he spelled it Kusher. Another individual, which this is actually a creative consultant on Dragon Age The Veilguard, also a former games journalism. I'm not sure if she continued, but Laura Kate Dale said, well, EA is now owned by a group including Saudi Arabia's investment fund and the Trump son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Good luck, BioWare. I wish your brand of those type of centric RPGs good luck. Oh gosh, The Sims is EA too. Yeah, I wish the best for the folks under EA who are going to be pushing for queer content in games following this acquisition. Is it bad that in some ways I am more concerned about Kushner putting pressure on EA than the PIF? The PIF at least have some incentive to maybe try and use publishing these games to launder the country's public perception globally. I doubt Kushner's group has the same concerns. Gosh, what a mess. Genuinely, the number of AAA game publishers whose games I can purchase without worrying I am financially supporting human rights abuses is shrinking by the day. Trying to balance my job is to talk about video games and I want to make moral purchasing choices is getting harder by the day. They continued saying, as someone who worked as a cultural consultant on Veilguard, the idea that EA is now owned by the group it's owned by is hugely disheartening. We are worse off as an industry if BioWare ends up being pressured to back down from attempting progressive themes in their games due to who owns Electronic Arts. Another game developer responding, rip to any of these type of characters ever existing in an EA game ever again, LOL. And then the Sims community page saying all those efforts in making The Sims the most inclusive and accepting game are falling into deep water when your money is now going straight into the pockets of administration. That is, the thing that boggles my mind is the fact that so many people are convinced that these companies are their friends. I don't think people understand that a lot of these actions, a lot of this stuff over the years, it is performative. They do not care about any of this stuff. And I also think that of all these games, progressive themes can still exist. They existed 10 or so years ago. It doesn't need to be straight in your face. And say what you will about Dragon Age The Veilguard, it was straight in people's face. And people reacted by not buying the game. These companies are interested in making money. They answer to that. And when these games aren't making money, well, what do you expect is going to happen? And the cool thing about entertainment period is that you can voice your displeasure. You can also support other developers that are making the games that you want. That's the answer that I would give to the individuals that are nervous or scared about this. Support the games, the developers developers that are actually making the experiences you want. If you want every and all ideology that you agree with in one game, I'm sure there's somebody that's going to appease that view. That is the amazing thing about games, movies, or any type of entertainment that exists today. Even right now, I do have my own concerns, and based on some of the companies that have been purchased by Saudi Arabia, we right now really haven't seen the influence, but we also haven't seen that massive of a purchase, at least in the gaming entertainment space, from Saudi Arabia, or, you know, private equity on this level, or Jared Kushner, or any of that. And yeah, in the past, Pokemon Go's director said that he wasn't going to have Saudi backing, won't see demand such as Cristiano Ronaldo added to the game. Yeah, that's a little bit not our vibe. Haven't seen that at least yet, but we have seen Cristiano Ronaldo weirdly added to a fighting game, and that has been linked to Saudi Arabia. If that's the extent of it, you know, Cristiano Ronaldo being added to Mass Effect, let that be the case. I just don't know what to expect from this deal, and I very much understand the concerns. I just don't think that there's anything to go off of, at least yet, and I do think that even myself, and maybe everybody, is overreacting to the nature of this deal. Will Electronic Arts suddenly become great again, you know, back to the early, you know, the mid-2000s? Maybe they will. Maybe this will be what they need. I definitely am skeptical because EA has just kind of always sucked, and I just feel like the partners that are now involved, I don't think that they are interested necessarily in the creativity of the gaming industry, but I do think that they are interested in making lots and lots of money. And the way you do that is by having great games, and that is something that Electronic Arts has not been delivering on, at least for a long time. And another reaction that we did see from this was another game developer saying Saudi money purchasing EA is somehow more crazy to me than when they basically started absorbing WWE, UFC, PGA Tennis, or Premiership football teams. Not even Thanos was moving like this. And say what you will, they have been making a lot of moves just in terms of entertainment, sports. It actually is kind of crazy. And it seems to be either Tencent or the Saudi Arabian government that is getting involved in these purchases. And that is definitely a discussion to be had about the gaming industry in the future moving ahead. But right now, I don't know. Them going private, I think, is probably a good thing. But the partners that are involved, private equity, the Saudi Arabian government, there's just so many question marks. So what do you make of all this? Do you think this is a good thing? Do you think this is a bad thing? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. But thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video, or if you found any informative value. Consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.